Hello, I'm David Munro. I'm Surrey's Police and Crime Commissioner. Could I say, give you a warm welcome to our roadshow this year. And I'm going to speak for about 5 minutes and then hand over to Chief Constable Gavin Stevens, Chief Constable of Surrey Police, and lastly, the Borough Commander for Reigate and Banstead, Inspector Alex Maguire. And then comes the important part, which is to take your questions and comments. Before I start, though, I would just like to pay a very warm tribute to the vast majority of Surrey residents who have behaved so magnificently throughout this very, very difficult year. Hopefully we're on the last lap now, but who can tell? And it's crucially important that every single person in the county obeys the rules. It's literally a matter of life and death. Surrey Police have been out there encouraging, educating and explaining, and that's worked for nearly everyone. But a small minority of Surrey residents, I'm afraid, are still flouting the rules, a very small minority. And my message to them is, please don't, please toe the line. By that, you save lives. Surrey Police are still prepared to enforce the regulations and will be out there as necessary. I'm David Munro. I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner for Surrey. My job, in a sentence, is to hold Surrey Police to account on behalf of you Surrey residents. I've been in post now for just over 4 years to do that. And it's crucial that we all hear what residents of Surrey, yourselves, actually think about policing in Surrey. What do you think we've got right? What do you think we've got wrong? And how you think we can improve? It's only by listening to your feedback and responding to it then we can make Surrey Police even better than I believe it is. I think we should take considerable pride in the achievements of Surrey Police over the last couple of years. It's not being complacent. We all know there's more to do, but nevertheless, if you look at the slide, you'll see, first of all, there's actually more police and staff in our ranks now after a decade of very painful cuts indeed. We've been recruiting over the last year and more to come. And that's not just the government's national uplift, Boris's 20,000. That's been more officers and staff paid for by yourselves as council taxpayers through the police precept. And you'll see that's already started to pay dividends. I'm delighted to say that the satisfaction of Surrey residents went up 3 places, and we're now number 7. We want to be actually number 1, of course, but we're on our way. And I'm particularly pleased that we are giving a good service to victims of crime, people who really go through a particularly hard time, and we need to be there for them, and I believe we are. I'm going to be asking Surrey residents to pay a little bit more in the police precept. But I think you're entitled to ask, well, last year the precept increased a little bit, so what have we got for that? And the answer is a lot. Over 150 additional officers and staff are either actually out there already, I hope you've noticed them, or they're in training, or they will be recruited on target by the end of this year. I'm particularly pleased that 63 of those are at local level, and I'm sure the Borough Commander will be talking more about that when he speaks later. And we're also, as an example, putting lots and lots more effort into actual problem solving. We're okay in Surrey, but we want to be much better than that. We want this county to be a place where criminals are fearful of committing crime because they'll get caught. And in addition to police officers and staff actually out there in our communities, we've put a lot of money into helping the most vulnerable people in our community, as you can see on this slide. So, what's the ask? The government have allowed us to increase the council tax for policing by 5.5%. That's equivalent to £15 a year on a Band D property. And I'm recommending that that's what we do, but it's crucial that we seek your views on whether that's a good thing or not to do. Our formal consultation on our website closes tomorrow morning, so I do hope if you haven't already responded, you do so in the next few hours. And essentially, what the precept will give you is an extra 150 police officers and staff by the end of next year. That includes the government uplift, but more officers and staff will be paid by the precept, if we can increase it, than actually national funding. I think if we can increase the precept by £15 a year for a Band D property, we will make a significant difference to Surrey policing. There'll be more police officers and staff, such as police community support officers, out in our communities and streets, helping to prevent crime, giving community assurance and catching criminals. We'll also be able to clear up more crimes, solve more crimes, and make Surrey a much safer place. I'll now hand over to the Chief Constable, Gavin Stevens.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to all of you for joining us online this evening. I'm sorry that we can't see you in person this year, and what a year it's been. Even in these times of uncertainty, though, I think it's really important for us to plan ahead. And when you came along to these events last year, you told us loud and clear what your expectations were from Surrey Police. We extended that into the early months of last year with a consultation of all of our officers, staff and volunteers to seek their views. But then, of course, in March, the major incident was declared and we were concentrating on policing the pandemic. So it was only when we got to the summer that we were able to dust off the plans, the work that we'd done, engage with all of our partner organisations across the county for their views too. And then in September, we launched our commitments for the next 5 years. So these are commitments to you in our communities, to each other in Surrey Police, and also to the future of the force. My commitment to you is also to keep you updated on the work that we're doing. And if you haven't seen it, we did our first quarterly review of the commitments in early January, so please do look back at our social media content online where you'll see a summary of the work to date. Before I talk about each of the elements in a little bit more detail, I just wanted to pay tribute to the contributions of all communities across Surrey, to our volunteers, the partner organisations that we've worked with, and of course, the brave officers and staff of Surrey Police for the work that they've done to police the pandemic. Much of the media focus on policing through the pandemic has been about enforcement and fixed penalty notices. But those of us in policing know that that has been just a tiny, tiny fraction of what we've been involved in. We have a core role in the local resilience forum for the county, where we come together with a huge range of organisations with support from military planners to do all of the things necessary to keep the county safe. Our police community support officers have visited many thousands of vulnerable residents along with their neighbourhood teams. Our police cadets have delivered food parcels to those in need. We've had officers come out of retirement to deal with the difficult tasks on logistics planning, supply of personal protective equipment to over 900 different organisations across the county, and sadly dealing with the many hundreds of bereavements that families have faced across the county. So I pay tribute to all of that work, and I thank you for your support too. We did an independent survey to seek your views in the first wave of lockdown, and just under 92% of residents said they had confidence in their local policing team. Thank you for that. Moving on then to our commitments in a little bit more detail, and first of all, our commitments to you in the community. You'll know if you've heard me speak before or come along to one of the events last year that I want Surrey Police to be a much more preventative organisation, and I'm pleased to say that our hard work is paying off. We are the 6th safest county in England and Wales, and the safest county in the South East. Now, that's no small achievement because we have a significant border with the capital, we have Europe's busiest motorway network and proximity to 2 major international airports. There's a huge amount of hard work that goes on from the teams to keep crime levels low. In the work to protect our communities, we've led the way in a number of areas that are often unseen. So, for example, Operation Signature is the work that we've done to tackle romance fraud, which last year saw 27 victims with losses of over £280,000. And that operation gained national significance, being picked up by the City of London Police and advocated as good practice. In the work that we do to pursue offenders, just a few examples. Operation Centurion is our work with the Metropolitan Police and other counties to tackle county lines drug supply, which involves detailed technical work analysing communications to take out drug supply networks at source and on the streets of Surrey, reducing the harm that drugs causes in your local areas. To keep you and your loved ones safe on our roads, Operation Tramline has given us an HGV eye view of dangerous driving, with the teams dealing with over 305 offences as part of that operation. And then more recently, Operation Rally, together with our colleagues in British Transport Police, we've tackled those offenders that blight our county through theft and damage, whether that's theft of valuable materials from our Wildenfield buildings across Surrey, theft of scrap metal, catalytic converter theft or dumping of property on the road. In that operation, we stopped over 150 suspect vehicles, dealt with 31 offences, including offences for immigration, crime and licensing. Of course, there's always more for us to do, and our focus for this year is to solve more crime. If you're a victim of crime in Surrey, your chances of having that crime cleared up are not high enough, and we want to do better for you on that. Turning next to the commitments that we've made to each other inside the organisation. I'm a big believer that what an organisation feels like to work for has a direct bearing on the quality of service that we give. So we want to aspire to the highest professional standards, and that means sometimes tackling those issues that can get overlooked. So we're proud to say that we're part of the Everyday Sexism Project, and we hosted an online debate to discuss those discrimination issues that female colleagues can face in the workplace day in, day out that sometimes go overlooked. That debate was streamed across the county, and we've used that as a platform for a campaign to say, "Not in my force." Just one example of how we want our workplace to be the best it possibly can. Of course, we take great pride in our history and what we do too, and last year we celebrated Black History Month, welcoming back to Surrey, Surrey's first black officer, Dr. Victor Elisa. The seminar that Victor took part in was joined by forces from around the country, and the exhibition that we put together went out into your communities so you could engage in that too. And of course, we also want to be a truly inclusive organisation that is really representative of the communities that we serve, so you can see yourselves in us. And up to November of last year, we'd welcomed 268 new officers to the organisation, and in October, on one single day, we attested, so we swore into service 75 officers on the same day, which is the biggest we've ever done in Surrey Police. And if that wasn't enough, we welcomed 33 transferees to Surrey, some of whom were returning, having tried out policing elsewhere. We recruited 56 police community support officers and 301 police staff colleagues. So a really busy year for the recruitment and training team. Our focus for this year, therefore, will be to maintain those exceptional high standards of selection, recruitment and training so we can give you the best possible service. So finally, turning to the commitments to the future of the force. I've already spoke about wanting it to be a more preventative organisation, and our problem-solving team are overseeing 350 live cases where teams are trying to get to the root causes of crime and disorder to design it out full stop. We've done much more work in partnership this year. Our special constables who are volunteers have given over 43,000 hours of service, some of whom have been furloughed from other employment and chosen to give their time to policing. And in policing the pandemic, we've worked with a real wide range of partners. Policing is not something that we can do alone. We need support to do it. And I'm determined to make sure that those partnerships endure beyond the pandemic. So in working together, we give you a better service. And finally, I think it's my responsibility as Chief Constable to get the full potential out of the organisation. And as well as getting the best from our people and giving them a rewarding career, it's to get the best out of our technology too. This year, we've introduced a new body-worn video system. We've introduced a new platform to manage all of our digital evidence, which allows you to upload material directly online that helps us in our investigations. We've put in place a digital 101 service where you can contact us 24/7, 365 days a year and get the same quality service that you would if you called us on the telephone. And so that I don't get rusty too, I completed my taser training course to keep up my street skills so that whenever I'm out and about with the team, I can play my part in keeping you all safe. Of course, there's always more to do, and the focus for this year is to really make the best of all of the information that we hold in the organisation to make sure that the new investment, additional officers and staff and volunteers are going to the areas where they're needed most. And on that point, I'd like to give you a more local perspective and hand over to the Borough Commander for Reigate and Banstead, Inspector Alex Maguire.
Thank you, sir. I'm Alex Maguire. I'm the Borough Commander for Reigate and Banstead. I've been in post now since June 2020. I come from a crime investigation background, and I'm very passionate about making Reigate and Banstead a safe place for you to live and work and enjoy. Reigate and Banstead is part of Surrey's Eastern Division, along with Mole Valley, Epsom and Ewell and Tandridge. It borders towns policed by the Metropolitan Police and Sussex Police. It covers a large area, approximately 13,000 hectares, and as of 2018, the population was approximately 148,000 people. This is the second highest population of our Surrey boroughs. We have the main police station based in Reigate. We also have two smaller station hubs in Hawley and Banstead. We also have a custody suite on Reigate and Banstead with 24 cells down at Salfords. Our main uniform teams at Reigate and Banstead, we have a neighbourhood policing teams. They provide the 24/7 response to calls that coming into police. There would be 5 rotors, each team having two to 3 sergeants and a team that could be up to 16 officers. They do a set shift pattern to make sure they give that cover 24/7. Then we have my team, the Safer Neighbourhood team. We focus on the local communities in the areas and work closely with external agencies to solve problems. We're divided up into 3, the North, South and Central areas. The team consists of myself, 3 sergeants, so I have Sergeant Vinnie Wajani in the North, Lisa Howard in the South and Sergeant Kelly Clifton Sinclair in the Central areas. We have 9 PCs on the team and 19 PCSOs, and you should see my team out on your area, nice and visible. They'll do a mixture of earlies and late shifts, so we'll give good cover across the week, so you will see us out and about in your area solving problems. We also work alongside many other teams, but we have a designing out crime officer who has over 30 years experience in policing, works closely with our team. And we have divisional support from other proactive and investigation teams. Our priorities as a borough have been to reduce burglary offences. And I'll go into a bit more detail in just a moment about how we've done with these. Are to protect vulnerable people and reduce cuckooing. To reduce serious violence on the borough. To reduce drug offences and problems caused by drugs, and to reduce antisocial behaviour and the threat of county lines to the people on our borough. So we've done a number of things on our borough to reduce these problems. We chaired a super JAG, which was to tackle burglaries on East Surrey. This was bringing together local MPs and our partners from the council to make sure we came up with a plan to tackle burglaries and make sure we reduce burglaries. We've also had a number of closures that have happened. These are done on addresses where vulnerable victims are being targeted and being cuckooed, and we make sure we get the addresses closed to protect them and to protect the other community, making sure that area is a safer place to live. We've recently got a CBO, a criminal behaviour order, for a prolific 17-year-old offender who was targeting the Reigate and Red Hill area. So, in getting this, we're protecting other vulnerable children in the area. And as of December 2020, on our register, we've had 45 children at risk of CSE and CCE. And we work closely with the dedicated team to make sure we have a plan in place to help these. So having a look at the results. So over the last 7 months, burglaries, residential burglaries, have actually decreased by 57.5%. compared to 2019. Now, some of that is going to be due to the pandemic. However, a lot of it is due to the plan we've got in place, things we've got in motion with our burglary super jag, and some of the results we had. To give you an example, we've recently had sentencing of 3 individuals who travelled from outside of the county and were committing burglaries, shed breaks, garage breaks and bike thefts, who each got sentenced to up to 3 years. And one other prolific offender who was convicted for 7 dwelling burglary offences, who got 4 years imprisonment. So these are really good results, taking these criminals out of the system who have been causing harm to the people of Reigate and Banstead. Vehicle crime has also decreased compared to 2019, a 33.5% decrease in vehicle crime. Now that includes catalytic converter thefts, which we did see a sharp rise in with the first lockdown, but we've put plans in place and have done work with other forces locally to target that. And we've now seen a decrease in vehicle crime on the area. Recently, we have seen an increase in antisocial behaviour, but that is only by a total of 16 more offences, and that is likely due to the reporting of breaches of COVID regulations. We've done a lot of work with antisocial behaviour to tackle this, and we used the Section 35 dispersal order 6 times throughout the summer in Priory Park. Antisocial behaviour there was becoming a problem that we won't tolerate on the borough, and we made sure we had the dispersal order in place so that families could go to the park and enjoy themselves at the park without feeling threatened by groups of youths. Just a more specific result on county lines and drug offenders who cause harm to the people of Reigate and Banstead. We've recently had a conviction for a male who'd been supplying Class A drugs in the Red Hill area, got a sentence of 6.5 years. My proactive team, who target county lines and drug dealers, despite delays from courts caused by COVID, they've still managed to amass a total of 108 years of sentencing imprisonment for offenders this year, and that is across the borough. We also, on Reigate and Banstead, have HMP Highdown and Downview, and in this last year we have put a prison investigation team in place that has taken detection and positive outcome rates for crimes within the prison up to above 40%. This is a significant increase and makes that place a safer place for staff to go to work, and they feel reassured and supported about our crime investigation. So going into 2021, what are my priorities going to be for Reigate and Banstead? Well, we want to continue reducing and tackling antisocial behaviour. We want to protect the vulnerable by tackling drugs in the community. We're going to continue to reduce violent crime in the local community. I want to continue building better relationships with community groups. And we're going to maintain a reduction in burglaries across the borough. And we think we have the right plans in place and have the right team to make sure this happens. I'd like to thank everyone on Reigate and Banstead for your support, for my team, and for everything you do. We've got some fantastic action groups who we work with, who do a lot of work on social media, and this could be they get out there and do litter picks, they do community speed watch schemes, they have the neighbourhood watch schemes. I'd like to thank you all for your hard work you're putting in, and we will be continuing to work with you throughout 2021 to make sure Reigate and Banstead is a safe place for you to live and work. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Alex, and good luck to achieving those priorities. Now, the most important part of this event, and that's to hear your questions and comments.
Good evening, I'm David Munro. I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner for Surrey. What you've just seen was recorded a few days back, but the same team is here live. Myself, the Chief Constable of Surrey Police, Gavin Stevens, and the Borough Commander for Reigate and Banstead, Inspector Alex Maguire. And there's also Sergeant Kelly Clifton Sinclair will be online typing away, and will take some of the very local questions as well. So this is your chance. We've extended question time to 45 minutes because they normally come in thick and fast. And so let's get straight on with it, shall we? Now, question one coming in is about Red Hill. The underpass, the railway underpass between Redston Hill and Marketfield Way, and the fencing there absolutely covered with very unsightly graffiti. And it's a question for you, Alex, a local question. What can the police do about it? And just generally, what can residents do about it when they see this graffiti?
Thanks very much, and thanks for your question. So very quickly, residents, if they see graffiti or see that happening, they do report it to us. Even if we're not able to catch people at the time, it's good to get the intelligence picture. Identifying it now as a hotspot, we can target it with uniform patrols. We'll also raise it in our joint action group, which is a meeting we have with partners to make sure that we can all focus our efforts on cleaning that area up and making sure there's no other antisocial behaviour taking place there. So we'll concentrate and focus our efforts on that with also the joint enforcement team of the council.
Great. And should the owners of the blighted surfaces be officially encouraged, supported in removing it? You've answered that, I think, but just to say again, yes, they should be. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that goes for any other graffiti site as well. Okay. Now, question two. Have we done, for me and Chief Constable, have you individually or together done everything possible to pressure the Home Office or whoever to prioritise frontline police officers to be vaccinated? I'll hand over to the Chief in a moment, but yes, I have. I spoke personally to the Policing Minister a few days back when this came up, and I know he's a very, great admiration for the current Policing Minister, Kit Malthouse. He is doing all he can. It's up to the Health Ministry, but he's doing all he can on behalf of police officers nationally to get frontline police officers vaccinated. Not in the first wave. We're not here to elbow aside 80-year-olds, of course not. But the second wave of vaccinations, we think we ought to get more priority, and that's what we're doing. Chief, I know things have been happening on the Surrey side as well.
Yeah, that's right. So as well as through police and crime commissioners, chief officers have been in regular dialogue with Home Office, and I've spoken, as the Commissioner has, directly to the Policing Minister about it. The Home Office is very supportive about getting police vaccinated. Of course, there's pressure from lots of other occupational groups as well, teachers, social workers. So we don't want to be at the top of the queue. Those that are most at risk from serious illness and death should, of course, be first. But we hope to see some movement soon on the national policy to allow important occupational groups in the emergency services and other key services to get vaccinated. We have had some colleagues vaccinated because there is a scheme that means if there are leftover vaccinations at the end of the day that otherwise would be wasted, so the ones that have to be kept at extremely cold temperatures, for example, then we can get colleagues there at very short notice to ensure that they're not disposed of and that they go into somebody's arm, and a number of colleagues have been vaccinated that way. That's not the answer. Obviously, we all need to be, and we're pushing hard for that to be the case.
Thank you very much indeed, Chief. Now, question 3 about fraud and also accessibility for people who have hearing impairments. The latest Surrey and Sussex fraud newsletter advises, how can you help us if you or someone you know is vulnerable and has been a victim of fraud? Call Surrey Police on 101. But lip readers cannot use their skill on the phone. Of course they can't. Is there anything we can do to help people like that? And another question linked to that, we've got no subtitles on this time, and thank you for that. I think we should have done, and we will certainly take that feedback away for future events. We want to be accessible to every single person, and we are looking into whether the recording of the website recording you just seen, when we put it up on the web, whether we can add subtitles to that, which goes part way to the question, but not all the way. I appreciate it. Chief, could you answer the question on fraud, perhaps?
Yeah, and well, specifically, there was a point there about publicising the text message number, the SMS number for the police link officers for the deaf. So I'll feed that back to the team for the next fraud newsletter for them to include that, because clearly we want to get to as many vulnerable people as we can about that fraud newsletter. Accessibility is really important to us, so this sort of feedback is really valuable. We try wherever we can for our social media videos that I do to have subtitles, for example. So really appreciate the feedback and appreciate that fraud newsletter is getting circulated for residents to see it.
Good, thank you very much indeed. And question 4 is local. Epsom Down Station. Some petty crime there, car theft, car tampering, lots of drug activity, the questioner says. Would it be possible to have cameras placed at each end of the road? And more generally, this is one for you, Alex, of course, what can the police do about petty crime at Epsom Down Station?
Well, it's on a different patch, but I'm sure Alec can...
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So it is. I know that perfectly well. It's in Epsom and Ewell. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say we do a lot of work across with our colleagues at Epsom and Ewell and the borough there, and some joint operations. Vehicle crime actually has reduced on Reigate and Banstead by nearly 32% for year to date, and we have been doing a lot of targeted patrols up there, high visibility patrols, to combat this sort of petty crime there. The question of cameras I won't address as it's on the Epsom and Ewell area, but now that it's been raised to us, we will continue to make sure that we are working with my colleagues over at Epsom and Ewell to patrol that area.
Thank you very much. And that specific question, we'll make sure that the Epsom and Ewell Borough Commander gets the detail and comes back to the questioner. Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, what's from the chairman of Salford Cricket Club, what's the approach that's going to be undertaken to support rural locations where there's lots of antisocial behaviour, drug taking, general nuisance? He says there's a problem at the cricket club, but more generally, what's the approach of the local force there, Alex?
We've been doing a lot of work in the south of the borough to target antisocial behaviour, and we've had some good results after a busy period over Christmas. A lot of youths out into all hours of the night. We've been targeting that with patrols not only from our Safer Neighbourhood team, but also from our MPT colleagues and other colleagues from Ops Command. We've seen a reduction in that, but if you've got a particular location like the Salford's Cricket Club, we could arrange for a visit from our DOCO, which is our designing out crime officer, could come and have a look at the location and see what could be done to make that a safer place, or a place that is more of a deterrent for them to gather. So we could maybe contact afterwards and set that up. But we will continue. We're continuing with our work in the south of the borough, combating antisocial behaviour down there. So you will still see those patrols taking place.
Thanks a lot. I'm sure we'll get more questions on our antisocial behaviour and what we're doing. Quite right too. It's an absolute curse for communities. Now, two questions. I'll ask the chief to answer. Give you a bit of a rest, Alex, just for the moment. Two questions on Nottingham knockers. Those very annoying people and worse who knock on people's doors without being asked. What action is being taken to deal with the so-called Nottingham knockers, who cause residents a great deal of anxiety as they are often quite threatening? And linked, what's the official line on Nottingham knockers? And that's from a neighbourhood watch coordinator. And do Nottingham knockers need so-called peddlers' licences?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Well, I guess the first thing to say is a comment about this during the pandemic. It's not a great idea for anybody to be doing door-to-door sales during the pandemic and having that contact. So we would want to know about that. We do have additional resources to deal with COVID breaches, and until we check them out, then we're not sure whether they're legitimate or not. People often claim to have peddlers' licences. It's an ancient piece of legislation that actually requires the chief to sign. I cannot ever remember signing a peddler's licence, so the chances are that they probably haven't got one. We always appreciate the calls and the intelligence. Depending on exactly what's happened will depend on whether you get an immediate response to something like that. But the information and intelligence is always useful to us, particularly if you see registration numbers of vehicles that they may be using and so on. And it's great for Alex's team to know if there's any particular hotspots and whether that correlates to any sort of crime patterns as well. So, Alex, I don't know whether you've had any recent spurts locally that have caused you a problem.
Yes. It's certainly in the north of the borough, and it is really helpful for the quick reporting that's been coming in. So I'll just encourage people to keep reporting in so that we can identify those hotspots. And officers on my team have been very quick to patrol the area and maintain patrols up there to deter that. You'll probably see some posts go out from us on social media, just making you aware that there has been reports of them in the area, but also to make your relatives or any vulnerable members of your family aware should they get knocked at the door.
And presumably your advice to a resident who is threatened or at least annoyed by a Nottingham knocker is to shut the door fast, and if you feel threatened, call the police.
Exactly, yes, that will be our advice.
Absolutely, thank you very much. Now I've got two questions on council tax, the police precept. One is positive and one is negative, but I'm going to read them both because we want to hear both points of view. Reference a rise in council tax. I presume you're talking about the police element. It's a small amount, I would agree. It worked well for Sussex. They've actually settled their council tax, where we're slightly behind. I'm due to come to a firm recommendation to my police and crime panel tomorrow. And that's when the precept will be set. Someone, however, has said they don't think they want to pay it because they don't think they're not receiving a good service. I'm very sorry to hear it, and particularly about catalytic converters. I'm going to start about council tax, and then I'm going to hand over to the force for specifically catalytic converters. I've got a consultation going. It's running until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If you haven't responded, it's on my website. Please do, because we want as many responses as well. I'm proposing a £15 a year addition to the police precept. That's £1.25p per month, and it equates to a 5.5% increase. That's £15 on an average Band D property. I'm not saying that just because I want to. I'm saying that because we're going to have tangible, real improvements in policing, most notably 77 police officers and staff, And that's in addition to the government's uplift, Boris's 20,000. It's all on my website. You will notice the difference if that precept is accepted, and you will get better policing. Not on day one. We'll have to recruit them and train them, but you will notice the difference. But it's never been more difficult for me in my 4 years this decision, because people tell me, and they're right to tell me, that in these horrible days we're going through, some people are simply cannot afford anymore. They're on furlough, they're on fixed pensions, and so on. And even this small amount is really, really unwelcome. I get that. And it's my decision, and it's a difficult decision, but that's what I'm paid for, is to work out what to do. So watch this space until tomorrow. Chief, could you pick up? Do say what you like on police precept, of course, but specifically on catalytic converters.
Yeah, sure. And the other part of the question is about not seeing a police presence, and of course part of the bid that we put into the Commissioner to consider is about increasing that police presence. I'll ask Alex in a minute to talk about how his team has grown over the course of the last year. Agree, catalytic converter theft is a real problem for us at the moment. At a national level, of course, we're pressuring the manufacturers to try and design this out at source in the same way that theft of car stereos was designed out in the 90s and the 2000s. There needs to be a different approach from manufacturers. There are some things that you can do to protect yourself from it if you know where your catalytic converter is. It's difficult to advise in this forum without knowing what particular vehicle the questioner has got. We are doing proactive operations. We're getting some good intelligence coming through, but also I'd really encourage reporting. So sometimes the thieves that are doing this are doing it in broad daylight, brazen. They might have a reflective jacket on, purporting to be from a local garage or something like that. And they're the sort of instance, if you see that, we really need you to call it in. But I can assure you that there are active investigations going on in relation to it. And I'll maybe hand over to Alex to talk about both the sort of local policing presence and any local issues on catalytic converter thefts that he's had in Reigate and Banstead.
Yes, thank you, sir. Just on the uplift of officers, we've seen, just on my Reigate and Banstead Safer Neighbourhood team, 4 more PCs join our team, which is almost doubling the numbers we've got on our Safer Neighbourhood team, and an increased flow of police community support officers. So we've got now up to 19 police community support officers, which are going to be out there and be visible. So you certainly should always see a presence around the borough. Just to pick up on catalytic converters, as the Chief Constable said, yes, this is a countrywide problem. It's something we've recognised in Surrey. We have an Operation Peanut, and we're also working alongside other forces around us, Thames Valley Police, Sussex Police, Kent Police, to target this problem. Reporting, as the Chief Constable mentioned, is very important, just so that we get a clear picture of hotspot areas and we can make sure our units are directed to them. We have made some arrests and we've got ongoing investigations with those, and just updated today, we've had 2 convictions at court, albeit with Thames Valley, but these were offending on Surrey. 2 individuals received 28 months and 27 months. So that's good sentencing for being involved in a series of catalytic converter thefts. So although you may not always see the marked units around, sometimes our tactics are maybe a covert, or you might not see the marked vehicles, but I can assure you there is a lot going on and we are starting to have some success with that.
Great. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
I think we may have lost the Commissioner just for a moment on the feed, so I'll go ahead with the next question, which is question 10. It says recorded cases of stop and search seem to have risen by 11% in December 2020 compared to the previous year, December 2019. Since lockdown was in force in December, what would you attribute the increase into, and why was it necessary given there were fewer people on the streets? So I'll give a perspective on that, and then Alex can maybe talk about his local stop and search activity. So one of the things during the pandemic that we've been able to do is increase our levels of proactivity. Stop and search is often used against those we suspect of drugs offences in particular, our county lines activity and so on. I've definitely seen at a force level an increase in that proactivity. So that's partly it. The other thing is, because the streets are quieter, it also allows us to more readily identify those people who may be up to no good, and we have had some fantastic stop checks during the pandemic based on serious and organised crime intelligence as well, and that's sort of driven up the rate too. So Alex, anything locally that's led to the increase from your perspective?
Yes, thank you, sir. No, just to reiterate that, really, the officers have been able to go out and be proactive, and if people are out on the streets, engage with them using the 4-step method, engaging with them as to why they are out during lockdown, and then if that's given rise to do stop checks and deal with people for other offences. That's what's happened. We've seen across Reigate and Banstead in certain areas up in the last 2 months up to a 40% increase in some drugs offences, and that's because of our proactivity where we're stopping people and dealing with them for drug offences. So it is very positive in that note that we are dealing with more drug offences and taking them out of play and dealing with those offenders.
Great. My system crashed just temporarily, but I'm back. I know we're on stop and search. I would just like to say I used to be the national lead amongst my PCC colleagues for stop and search. I am absolutely convinced that stop and search is a vital part of the policing armoury. It's got to be properly controlled, properly regulated, and officers who do stop and search, of course, need to be held to account, just like any other thing they do. But police officers should not be afraid of using stop and search, provided, of course, it's done within the regulations. And in Surrey, we've got it right. So I'm very clear about that. Now, question 11, precept again. To what extent is the increase in the precept justified by crime data in Surrey? A very good question. How do you intend to adopt better technology to keep headcount down? Well, data is crucial to all policing, isn't it? But Chief, you know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot wrapped up in this question. So, our bids for additional resourcing are informed by the changes in the crime trend, but not just the volume of it. So some offence types, for example, have decreased dramatically over the course of the last year. For example, we've had 1,550 fewer burglaries because many of us have been at home. Equally, we've seen large increases in online-based offending and some increases in domestic abuse and domestic violence as well. The other thing to point out, though, is that although when we talk policing, often people talk about crime and crime figures, but of the 1,000 or so calls that our contact centre takes every day, only about 15% of those relate to crime. A much bigger percentage, so in the region of 30 to 40% relate to health and social welfare issues. So concerns for safety, missing people, vulnerable people. That is a bigger part of policing than crime is. It's always been the case all throughout my service, but of course what you see commented on and reported on is always the crime aspects of it. And of course, we're here to keep everybody safe, whether that's the work that we do on the roads or the work that we do with our partner agencies to support vulnerable children, for example. So understanding all of that data, which I guess is the second part of this problem, is really important to us. And we are investing in new technology, better data analytics, better cloud computing platforms that allow us to do automated searches and performance information, cloud platforms that allow us to process our digital evidence. So all the time we are looking for efficiencies to make sure that as most money as we get possible can go on frontline services and not on back office processing. So I could probably keep talking, but conscious we've got lots of other questions as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Chief. Now, question 12. Firstly, thank you for all the hard work of your officers, especially during the pandemic. Thank you very much for that. We'll certainly want to pass that on. Can I please ask if you're able to secure funding for additional officers? Is the plan to fund entry-level officer roles, i.e. police constables and police community support officers, or are they for more specialist roles? I'll ask the Chief to go into a little bit of detail, but can I assure you, first of all, the answer is both, but secondly, the officers, the 77 officers and staff that we plan to employ with the precept increase are all in the front line. They're not all warranted officers, but they are all there in the front line to prevent and solve crime. And if there is a theme, then it is solving crime. That's what those officers will do. We're not talking of desk jobs here, admin support. Everybody does need admin support, but that's not what we're asking for the money for. Chief.
Yeah, so that's right. I mean, it is a mix. So the 20,000 uplift, that's for additional police officers, police constables. There are different routes of entry though, so you can come in now, for example, on a degree holders programme to go straight into being a detective. You can come into us on an apprenticeship route, so effectively you get a degree for free by completing your training. So that's the bulk of the recruitment. But as the Commissioner said, there are specialist roles as part of the additional funding as well. We need more colleagues doing work on digital forensics, for example. There are not many crimes now that don't have some sort of digital component to them, so we need to increase our skills there. There's work to do on reduction of rape and serious sexual offending, and there's posts dealing with that. We've got field intelligence officers that can develop the intelligence by being out on the ground and putting packages together for Alex and the other divisional teams to work on. So a whole mix of things really. And if anybody watching tonight is interested in joining policing, there's a huge range of roles on offer, and now is a great time to come into policing.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, very topical. I'm with a village group campaigning against a local development. Can our volunteers deliver leaflets? Or are we caught by the government letter banning political leaflets during lockdown? The developer is using paid deliverers. It seems unfair. Chief, I know you've got views. I've got some more up-to-date information on that, so I'll end up, but over to you first.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a regular question in recent weeks, and it hinges on the volunteering exemption of a reason to leave home. That exemption was put in initially for essential volunteering services during the pandemic, so domestic abuse outreach services, delivery of food parcels, medicine parcels to the vulnerable, that sort of thing. Of course, there's lots of voluntary groups that want to go door to door to deliver leaflets. Our advice is don't do that. We don't think it's clear within the legislation that it allows you to do that. But aside from the legislation, and of course, all of this was legislation put together really quickly, and I absolutely acknowledge that there are lots of elements to it that may appear unfair. None of us expected to have to enforce these laws during a pandemic. I always say to people, fall back on first principles. We are all being asked to behave as if we have the virus because of the levels of asymptomatic transmission. And if you had the virus, would you call door to door, putting items through people's doors? And surely the answer to that is no. We know that the latest variant of the virus stays around longer on surfaces and clothing. So my strong advice, not necessarily from a solely a legal perspective, but from a public health perspective as well, is please don't do it.
Thank you very much, Chief. I don't think the government guidance is as clear as it should have been, and a lot of people have been asking questions, which I think proves the point. I went through my own Police and Crime Commissioner Association to get a clear steer from government. I got that this afternoon only, and it reinforces what the Chief Constable has said. The law says you mustn't leave home unless for some specified purposes, work, exercise and so on. One of those specified purposes is for voluntary or charitable services. So the question is delivering leaflets, for instance, parish magazines, is that a charitable purpose? And the advice I got from government, no, it isn't. So that would seem to be the national advice, and I would urge everybody, we're all law-abiding people, to comply with that. I hope it won't last for too long, of course, but I do understand where the questioner is coming from. Now, my screen has frozen.
I can take the next question, Commissioner, if it helps.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So the next question is, do you think it's fair to have a 5.5% council tax precept increase when so many people are facing financial difficulties and local councils are increasing their council tax by less than 3%? There's a related question that says, you mentioned Surrey Police are doing okay at the moment. It's great to strive for better, but in this economic climate, 5.5% seems too high, and surely doing okay is acceptable. Where do you see this balance?
Thank you. This is right. This has to be for me. It's my responsibility. There are two aspects. A 5.5% increase will hit some people very hard. I know that, and people have told me that, and I get that. On the other hand, people are also saying they want to see more police officers and staff on the streets. They want to see more policing in our community. How do you square that circle? Very, very difficult indeed. I need as many people as possible who haven't replied to the consultation to let me know, so that I'll be informed as much as possible, making my recommendation to the Police and Crime Panel tomorrow. It's not an easy one because I recognise both sides.
Thank you. And the next question is probably for me, and it's related. What efficiencies are Surrey Police seeking to help balance a large 5.5% increase? Well, each and every year we set ourselves efficiency targets. We've taken tens of millions of pounds of efficiencies out through our collaborative work across the region, and particularly our very strong partnership with Sussex Police over recent years. Even with the increases in officer numbers and increases in precept, we still have those efficiency targets. So that's all sorts of things: renegotiating big IT contracts to get better value for money, reviewing our fleet through use of vehicle telematics to make sure we've got efficient use of that, doing where necessary structural reviews of departments to make sure that we've only got the absolute resources necessary, and using new technology to be more efficient. So we're always doing that, and we will continue to do that even when we see uplifts in operational resources.
Absolutely. And from my part, I have told Surrey Police, and they're carrying it out, I need to see efficiency savings every single year. We can always do better. I think Surrey Police do pretty well, frankly. Use of resources, we get ticks in the box from our inspectors, but there's always more we can do year by year. Question 15, more people working from home. Is crime reducing? Answer, it depends what kind of crime, hence creating spare resource. Chief, could you just give us a landscape of the last year?
Yeah, I can. Well, in the early stages of the very first lockdown back last year, this was the case in that we had a little bit more time, but that very quickly changed to all of the reports of breaches from the pandemic, and then the lockdowns since, of course, have had a different look and feel to them, and we're as busy as we ever were. But I'll ask Alex, because he's probably got a local flavour on just what it feels like, for his team's day to day.
Yes, there has been a reduction in some areas of crime. I think we've already mentioned, but then we've seen increases in other areas, and that's where we've had to redirect our resources. So, for instance, antisocial behaviour in parks and open spaces, We've had to target a lot of that, and we've done that particularly in Reigate. For instance, Priory Park saw a lot of offences, so we had to put a lot of resources into that, use of antisocial behaviour, dispersal orders, but also a lot of work with our partners from the council and joint enforcement team to make sure that behaviour was dealt with, arrests were made, and offences dealt with. So our resources, albeit there's been reduction in other areas, like we've mentioned in burglary and in vehicle crime, there's been an increase in antisocial behaviour, so we've had to make sure we're targeting those hotspots and getting the right officers there at the right time.
Great. Thank you very much. And a linked question, burglary has seen a big decline during the lockdown. What should residents do to help keep the level down as restrictions on leaving home are eased? Well, the straightforward answer, residents can do a lot. Alex, what would you like residents to do?
Well, firstly, we continue to put a lot of messages out on our social media page on Reigate and Banstead, so do keep an eye on that. That will give you an idea of things that you can do or to look after loved ones. The thing to do is make it look like you're still at home. Have a look at getting some CCTV, maybe Ring doorbell, whether you've got light timers, property marking. So we've got a scheme using selector DNA, which is specific DNA for property that we've got funding to roll out in areas. So we will be approaching areas and getting property marked. But making sure your property is secure, making sure there's no easy access, and it's not an easy target for burglars. Side gates, the rear of the property, looking after your neighbours, making sure bins are put away and not left out, so that if there are people in the area looking for properties to target, your place looks safe and is safe. And but do keep a look at our social media page. We will continue to put out the messages.
Thanks, Alex. I just had a couple of extra bits to that. Alex mentioned the bins, and one of Alex's colleagues, Alec James, over on the west of the county, did a bit of analysis on this with his team, and they found that bin day, or the day after bin day, was a particular issue for local burglary. So look after your neighbours, and if you know they're not there, please do take their bins in from them, because that's definitely a sign that burglars look for. And the other thing is, of course, we often think about our homes, aren't we? But the majority of our burglaries are to sheds and outbuildings and garages, and often they're much less secure. So if you had £1,000 in cash, you wouldn't leave it just sitting on the floor of your shed. But often people have got bikes in there that are worth £2,000-3,000 with just a tiny little padlock on there. So I would say pay real attention to outbuildings too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sir, if I could just add, one thing I've not mentioned is find out if your area has a neighbourhood watch scheme. We've got some fantastic neighbourhood watch groups, and we link in with them with regular meetings and put information out to them about trends and things that are happening. So find out if you have a neighbourhood watch scheme and get involved in it. And from an investigative point of view, we have a really good proactive burglary investigation team on Reigate and Banstead, and we've seen some significant results in the last 6 months with several offenders getting custodial sentences of up to 3.5 years. So the investigation team have been doing a really good job in taking these offenders out of play, so that has also contributed to the reduction.
Good, thank you very much indeed. And I certainly echo your support of Neighbourhood Watch. They do a fantastic job, certainly in Reigate and Banstead, but the rest of the county too. And I support them wholeheartedly. And I give them some money too. So it's not just warm words, it's actual cash, which is much better. Right, question 17 from someone who doesn't like jargon. Here. What's cuckooing? Alex, you know what it is?
Yeah, so we deal with this quite a bit, and as a result of which we might get closure orders in place. It's when a vulnerable person within their address is targeted by offenders, and they may then use the address and exploit the vulnerable person, maybe for an addiction or financially, so that they could use the address, and they may use it. We've seen county lines drug dealers using the premises. So what we can do is then come in once we've identified them, work with partners and get closure orders on the address, so that other people visiting with these intentions cannot take place. And if people are found within the address, then they can be arrested and dealt with.
Great. I hope that answers the question in a jargon-free way. I'm sure it did. Now, I work for a London force, says a resident. I reported antisocial behaviour COVID regulation breach in Red Hill Town Centre, and would just like to say thank you for a very swift attendance and dealing with the situation. So thank you very much for that. But the general point is, it's always worth reporting. We have a huge number of channels in Surrey Police, online, telephone, and so on. And so there's no excuse for not reporting something, because we want to hear. We want to hear from you, Chief. I know you'd go along with that.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, good question. Whilst you had 268 new officers, what's the net increase in the force after retirements? And I should say, I'll ask Chief to put some figures to that, but all the figures we've been talking about previously is the net increase. Of course, we recruit many more people year by year than we've said, because we have to compensate for people who leave as well. Chief.
Yeah, sure. And that 268 recruitment figure was to the end of November. We welcomed another 54, I think it was, colleagues in January. The answer to this question depends on which year and which component of the money you're looking at. So from the 20,000 uplift, the national uplift, in the first year we had just over 100, and then we expect in the 70s this year. So they're definite increases. And then in the precept, well, obviously the plans are still to go to the police and crime panel tomorrow, but there are additional officers and operational staff involved in that too. But we can add, there's more information that is published through the performance papers that we do in public forum. And if the questioner had a specific time period that they were looking at, or a particular team, if they want to drop us a note, that we can get an answer to them on that specifics. And at the end of this session, for anybody that hasn't had their question answered or wants a bit more detail, then an email address will come up for follow-up.
Absolutely, yes. Now, more on accessibility. We had a question earlier, and the same questioner says, can we be sure to send everything to the Surrey Coalition of Disabled People? And just to assure you and everybody, we can certainly do that. I know the Surrey Coalition of Disabled People. They do fantastic work, and it's right that they get to know all of this. So thank you very much indeed for this suggestion. Now, hello. Is there anything we as residents or the police can do to discourage parking on double yellow lines in my neighbourhood? Handful of persistent offenders, and it concerns me that emergency vehicles won't be able to pass on my road. A complicated matter, parking, too complicated in my view, but there we are. Alex, what's the parking situation then in Reigate and Banstead?
Yeah, it's not something we get a lot of reports on, but still do encourage reporting, particularly if you feel like it's getting to a stage where emergency vehicles can't come through. It is predominantly going to be dealt with by the council, whether that be by their joint enforcement team or the appropriate wardens. But if there's a situation where vehicles are obstructing the highway, then we could come and deal.
Thank you. And really important to report it, because then the police and the Highways Authority can actually identify hotspots, and jointly we can do something about it. Pavement car parking comes up a lot too, and that's something also we need to do something. The government has just consulted in the issue, and I and the Surrey County Council have responded saying we want greater restrictions on pavement parking, not necessarily blanket ones, but we want to make it harder for people to obstruct pavements, which I know a lot of residents, especially with mobility difficulties, find really annoying and indeed unsafe. Thank you for that. Something on fireworks here. Then the Neighbourhood Watch Coordinator says that his neighbours are frequently setting off really loud fireworks which are waking the baby and agitating their dog. No advance warning. What can the police do, or is this a matter for the council?
Yeah, well, a noise nuisance is primarily a council issue, unless they felt that there was somebody at risk where we might get involved, or if it became so persistent that it would be deemed a sort of harassment type offence, then the neighbourhood team might want to get involved and see if they can negotiate something on that. But Alex, I don't know whether this has been a problem for you.
No, it's not been raised as a problem, but exactly that, sir. If there's an ongoing problem, are we looking at harassment offences? But predominantly, I think we'll be linking in with the council or environmental health for the noise. And can the council put measures in place for the antisocial behaviour? But it's something that we could look to deal with our partners and make sure the right agency is taking appropriate action.
Yeah, and Reigate and Banstead has an excellent joint enforcement team where the teams work together. So if the question on that one does want to get in touch with more detail, then please do.
Certainly, yeah. we'll put them in touch. Yeah.
I'd certainly agree there. The jet in Reigate and Banstead is an exemplar for everybody else in the county. Now, question 23, how do you contact the digital 101 that was mentioned in the introduction, please? I think, Chief, I'll leave that with you.
Yep.
I think.
Sure. Well, so I guess Digital 101 is shorthand for it being a non-emergency digital service, because 101 is our non-emergency number. It's actually a range of different services, so you can contact us on any of our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, 24/7, 365 days a year, either through public or private message, and the team in our contact centre will respond to those. If you go to our website as well, there is online reporting functions through the website and a chat function on there too. We refer to all of that collectively as our Digital 101, but it basically means if anywhere that we are online, you can contact us online, and we're there 24/7, 365 to respond to that.
Good, thank you. That's and that's a real innovation. I think we're only the second force in the country to give that facility to people. Yeah. Great. Now, Reigate Police Station, is it going to be closed? And if so, what will replace it? And the answer is yes, it is, but not for a few years until we move into a new headquarters. Surrey Police move to a new headquarters in Leatherhead, and part of the operations in the Reigate Police Station will move to Leatherhead. But, and it's a very big proviso, it's my pledge as PCC, and I know the Chief Constable agrees 100%, we will still have a police presence in Reigate. We're not quite sure where it's going to be, but it will be in Reigate. It will be equivalent to what there is on local policing now. And we had an important meeting only this morning to look at some options as to where that will be. So watch this space. There will be no lessening of a local police presence in Reigate and Banstead, and that is a firm pledge. And there's a link question. Why can't you reopen Banstead Nick? I don't think there was a Nick there. What was there a long time ago?
It's still there, and there's still some teams using little parts of it, and the fire service use part of it as well. So it may feature in our longer term planning, but Alex, do you have a perspective for how much the local team use it as a drop-in place?
Yes, it gets used daily, and also used with our colleagues up at Epsom and Youghal as well, because of the geography. But my team that are out and about in the north of the borough, and they will go in and use it as a drop-in, and there is still facilities for them there. So you will still see a lot of police activity in and around Banstead.
Yeah, and I think I misunderstood the question. I assumed that we're talking about a custody suite. Of course, there aren't any cells in Banstead, but I've been to Banstead police post, and it's certainly there. Good. Now, we're running out of time, so I'll take two more questions, I think, but we will respond to the questions we haven't been able to answer individually, as the Chief has said. Question 25, how are you balancing the COVID risk for officers versus policing the borough? Very good topical question. Chief, what's the force policy and practice here?
Yeah, this is a really difficult one, and it's very sad to say that we have lost colleagues to COVID in recent weeks, which is, heartbreaking for the police family, and many families have been bereaved through this dreadful pandemic, haven't they? But of course, Alex's team and colleagues put themselves on the front line every day, dealing with people who don't have any respect for social distancing or what personal protective equipment we might have to hand at that very moment. So inevitably we put ourselves in harm's way. We've done as much as we possibly can to improve the safety of the workplace with keeping distancing and keeping things clean and screens and so on, and the personal protective equipment that we provide to colleagues. But nobody is pretending that's been easy, the same as it hasn't been for other emergency services too. But I'm just enormously impressed with the dedication and motivation of the teams, and I'm sure Alex would say the same about his local team too, about the activities that they do day to day.
Yes, I'd certainly echo that. It has been very tough, particularly losing colleagues in recent weeks. But measures are taken. Officers are making sure they've got the full PPE as appropriate with each job they deal with, and it is properly risk assessed. And as you say, we have got very strict measures in place at the workplaces to make sure that we are compliant and we are doing everything we can to minimise the risks to all the officers.
Thank you. And of course, I absolutely 100% agree. Very difficult time for Surrey Police, and I think they've got it right during COVID. The right balance between personal safety, of course, encouraging, explaining, and in the last resort, enforcing. Now, my arm's been twisted by the back room here, and I've been told I need to take 3 more questions, so I will. So forgive me for running a bit late. Question 26. I'd just like to say that I think our police force deserve a big thank you. Thank you back in return. They do a very difficult job putting their personal safety on the line and not getting much appreciation for it. Thank you very much indeed for that, and it's much appreciated. Now, number 27. Good to see there's an SMS text number for the PCC office. Lip readers and BSL users, and also people who stutter, have an obvious access for all route. Surrey can do accessibility better, and there's a little bit of work that is needed just to be as good. I have to say I don't fully understand the question, but the principles behind that are crystal clear. We need to do better in giving better access to people who can't use the normal channels quite as easily. Chief, would you like to comment?
Yeah, and the question is specifically mentioning the Contact Us page on the police website. I'll certainly take that away. The website that we use is actually part of a national service, so I'll certainly raise that with the designers of the national service, which because lots of police websites across the country, they're all exactly the same to ensure efficiency, but we can certainly take that one away.
Good, thank you. And the last question, the Nextdoor app is a good source of information and reporting. The question says, I live on Bergwood, which is a small road. Cars use it as a rat run and they're speeding. What can be done to prevent a serious accident? So that's plaudits for the Nextdoor app, but the serious question is, what can we do in Bergwood about speeding? Alex?
Yes, so we have casualty reduction officers who will identify hotspots where there has been speeding or there has been accidents. I will make sure it's raised with them so they could do a survey on the area, and then they could target the area with other high visibility patrols. We've actually recently had an operation that all officers across Reigate and Banstead were involved in, targeting hotspots of accidents. But we'll take that away, the road in the Burwood, to make sure that that is looked at, and if they could do a survey on the area to target that in the future.
Thank you very much. Right, I think we're done. Two things. First of all, we will get back to those people who still got questions. I promise you that. And my consultation for the precept, very important consultation, closes at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So please get onto my website if you haven't already done so. And of course, the last thing is to say thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks from all of us. And we'll all say good night. Cheerio.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.